Hi, my name is Samuel Ronfard. I'm an assistant professor at the University of Toronto, Mississauga, and I'm the director of the Child Lab, which stands for the Childhood Learning and Development Lab. I'm interested in how children's thinking develops and changes over time and why that change happens. So how do children learn about the shape of the earth? Given that every day when they wake up and look outside, it's flat. How do they learn about germs, which are invisible and yet have this powerful influence on our body and our behavior, how we feel? How do they learn about other people's emotions and mental states and how people are thinking and feeling? How do they acquire that information? Do they ask questions? If they're given explanations, what kind of explanations succeed in changing their mind and why? How does constraints on their mind and their development of their mind, their ability to store information, to manipulate information, how does that put constraints on their ability to learn from other people? And when they've learned something, how does what they've learned influence their behavior? So in other words, we're trying to understand how different influences, social influences, constraints on learning in the mind of the child, how all those things are interacting together over time to produce and shape learning. And ultimately, I think what we hope to learn from this is how we can help educators, parents, teachers better support children's learning. This is kind of a long, meandering story. I don't think I really planned on it. So as an undergraduate student, I studied philosophy and economics. I was really interested in those topics, but then when it came time to graduate, I wanted to do something where I could help other people learn. And I really enjoyed teaching and working with children, so I became a special education teacher. I did that in New York City for 4 years. And I taught students with special needs there. And it was some of the hardest work I've done, but also some of the most rewarding work I've done. And doing that work got me more curious about understanding how people learn, why some things are difficult to learn, and how we can help people learn better. And what role does the social environment, parenting, teachers, how do all those things shape learning? So that led me to go back to graduate school. I did a master's at the Harvard Graduate School of Education in Mind, Brain, and Education. I was really excited about that program because it seemed to kind of bring together different perspectives, which I thought would be really enlightening. And I realized that actually my passion was really more in cognitive development and how children are thinking rather than neuroscience aspect of it. And so then I applied to work at the Graduate School of Education to do my doctorate there. But even then, my journey kind of changed and meandered for a bit. So I got in to start working on a project that was looking at how we could use discussion and debate in the classroom with middle school students to help them learn vocabulary, reasoning skills, social skills. The idea being that in schools, children don't often get or to ask questions or to engage in debate. So if we could increase those experiences for children, then we could maybe see an impact broadly on their cognition and their social reasoning and all those things. And I did that work for a few years, but then realized that we were testing an intervention that had already been designed. And I think I realized that what I was really interested in was to understand why and how children think, how that changes, and a little bit less about kind of testing and evaluating educational intervention. And so I switched advisors and I started to focus on cognitive development. And that happened because I took a class with what became my graduate advisor, Dr. Paul Harris, on children's thinking about emotions. And in class, he had these fascinating studies asking, I think, really interesting questions and then kind of clever experiments to find the answer to those questions. And after class one day, I was like, oh, I wonder if, this could explain this. And, he said, oh, maybe. Well, why don't you find out and do an experiment? And I was like, wait, what? Okay. And I'd never done any experiments before. I'd never really been involved in experimental psychology, mental psychology. And I did it and I learned a lot and I kind of caught the bug and loved it. And I started working on, do children test what they're told when they have doubts about something surprising? Do they seek out information, and how do they use that information to change their mind? After that, I did what's called a postdoctoral fellowship. I worked in another lab with Dr. Deb Kellerman at Boston University, and I got to work there on a cool project that really kind of brought together a lot of my interests, which is called the Evolving Minds Project. It was a project to see how we could teach children about natural selection and other evolutionary concepts. And we developed storybooks that brought cognitive science research into designing educational tools. So we got at a lot of basic scientific questions about how learning happens, the mechanisms of that learning. But we also got at some really cool educational questions about how can we help teach young children core scientific concepts that are going to help them for the rest of their lives.